Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Assessment Parent Night webinar. We will get started. So I am Ms. Beagley. For those of you who don't know, I'm the contact person for testing. I'm the Curriculum and Assessment Coordinator, and my email is on the screen. It's just kelsey.beagley@orlandoscience.org. So for tonight, please post any general questions that you have in the chat. We have Mr. KB with us, who is able to answer questions throughout the presentation as we receive them. And then at the end, I'll also take any general questions about any of the assessments that are still left in the Q&A. If you have a specific situation or a question about your specific student that would only apply to them, you want to reach out to me via email. And please include your email address when typing your questions, just in case it's something that we need to further investigate and then reach back out to you. So questions will be answered either live or via the Q&A chat. So tonight we'll talk about the communication channels in regards to testing, prohibited items, the FSA overview and resources, graduation requirements, the Scholar Diploma, AP exams, BACE and PLTW, and then I will answer any questions. So to learn about the information regarding testing, we first have this webinar presentation taking place now. You'll be able to reference this on the school YouTube page. Microsoft Teams will be used, so students will receive assessment-related reminders, information about where they're testing through grade level Teams channels. Subject area teachers are also reminding students about their upcoming assessments for their class. The school newsletter is updated weekly. The Testing Corner bulletin board on the 3rd floor is also used to update students on testing and testing location, and then finally via email. So for all testing, prohibited items include phones, smartwatches, any type of wearable technology, laptops, anything with internet access, music players. So if any of these devices vibrate or ring during a test, or we see a student looking at that item, the student's test will be invalidated. So it's important to remind your students. Calculators are prohibited unless they're allowed or required for the specific exam. And students are not able to consult any textbooks, notes, their teachers, students, or any other resources during an exam or during a break during an exam. If any students observed violating test security, they will be dismissed, their device confiscated, and their score canceled. And in most cases, no retest will be permitted. So the Florida Statewide Assessments, these include reading, algebra, geometry, biology, and U.S. history are the category that we'll talk about first. And you might be aware there are some changes that are being implemented this year to the Florida Statewide Assessments. They don't use the term FSA anymore. So that's why I'm calling them Florida Statewide Assessments. So one of the changes are that the Algebra 1 and Geometry EOC are aligned to new standards, the BEST standards. And instead of those being administered in 2 different sessions over 2 different days, they're now administered in one 160-minute session with a break in between the first 80 minutes. And if the student doesn't finish at the end of that session, they may continue working up to the length of a typical school day. The grade 9 and 10 ELA FSA is now called the FAST, or the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking. So we switched to a progress monitoring system. Students take a FAST in August and January, and now here in May will be the 3rd FAST for their ELA. And instead of this being 2 days, 2 sessions over 2 days, like it previously was with the FSA, it's also just now 1 session, 1 day, 120-minute long cumulative reading test. So this applies to ELA only for high school. For middle and elementary subjects, there's also a FAST math, but students do not take that in high school. So the Florida Statewide Assessments that students are taking the fast reading, which all 9th and 10th graders are taking. And then depending on their courses, students will take the other statewide assessments. The results from these are all important. They're used to make sure that your student is placed in the appropriate classes and they receive the appropriate support to be successful. So who is taking Florida statewide assessments? The Florida statute requires that all public school students, including public charter students, are required to participate in these assessments. If students have accommodations, they are provided to them automatically for the Florida statewide assessments. And English learners are also participating in these assessments. So these assessments provide parents and families, teachers, policymakers, such as the general public, with information regarding how well students are learning our Florida standards. So all schools publicly funded in Florida are administering these tests. They must be administered on campus. They are all computer-based, and students are not admitted to testing rooms after the assessment begins due to the statewide rules. So this year is what the testing assessment schedule looks like. This has been in the newsletter where it is there for your reference. But we can see that they're all mostly taking place between this 2-week time frame coming up on May 1st, and then there'll be a window for makeups as needed. Enrollment-based means that your student is taking this test only if they are enrolled in the course. So if a student's not taking a biology class, they are not taking the biology EOC. And then there are 2 exceptions to this schedule that's due to test overlap, which I will explain on the next slide. So again, you can reference this as well in the newsletter. So 2 of the exceptions to our testing schedule are that students who are 9th and 10th grade and enrolled in AP Chemistry will take the fast reading on Wednesday, May 10th, instead of Monday, May 1st. Monday, May 1st, they will be taking the AP Chemistry test. So yeah, they'll take the fast reading on Wednesday, May 10th. And then 10th grade students who are enrolled in both US History and Biology will take the US History first on Wednesday, May 3rd, then the Biology EOC on Wednesday, May 10th. This is because these tests are at the same time, and so students will not be able to take them at the same time or even on the same day. So information, I want to go just through some details about each Florida statewide assessment. Starting with the fast reading, which affects all 9th and 10th graders, regardless of their reading level, they are taking the fast reading test for the grade level that they are in. There's a 9th grade fast reading and a 10th grade fast reading. Like I said before, this test has been reworked from the FSA, and now it will be administered in just one 120-minute session, completed in one day. It consists of 36 to 40 multiple choice items based on reading passages. It is a computer-based test, like all the other FSAs, and then it's important to know that earning a passing score on the 10th grade fast reading is a graduation requirement. So the next set of tests, schedule-wise, are the Biology and US History EOCs. For biology, any student enrolled in pre-AP bio, or biology honors are taking this exam. Students who are enrolled in US History or US History honors will take the US History EOC. And some students are enrolled in both types of courses, and that's why they're taking the US History first and biology on a different date. This is also administered in one session, completed in one day. It's worth 30% of the total grade for the course. And the biology EOC consists of about 60 multiple choice items, while the US History EOC consists of between 50 and 60 multiple choice items. They were both computer-based. And the Algebra 1 and Geometry EOCs also taking place on the same date, May 9th. Students enrolled in any algebra or geometry course are taking the EOC. It's also worth 30% of their grade for the course. The They're administered in one 160-minute session with a short break. This is a change from previously when they were administered in 2 different days. If the student doesn't finish, they're still able to continue working for the length of a typical school day. This consists of about 50 different item types that, using technology, students can fill in a graph, for example, edit an equation. Students have access to an online scientific calculator embedded in the test, and for both of these tests, because it's computer-based. And it's also important to note that a passing score on the Algebra 1 EOC is a graduation requirement. Blank scratch paper will be provided for each student for these tests. So if you're looking for resources for these Florida assessments, the website fsassessments.org is a good resource. There's practice tests for each subject, each grade level, and they have the item types that are on the exam. And so that can help students feel more comfortable with the testing platform. Just make sure you're selecting the correct subject and grade for the practice test. So when you just go to fsassessments.org, you'll see at the bottom a link to access the practice tests. You'll also see a link for students and families. Students or parents and families can support student success just by staying involved, offering positive support and feedback, encouraging your student to do their best. In the students and families section of the FS assessment portal, there's practice tests, fact sheets, assessment resources for each test. And then after testing, you can also use the family portal to gain access to score information. For the Florida statewide assessments, we have different performance levels, and parents and families are going to receive a paper score report after the scores are distributed, as well as it being able to be accessed on the portal. But the paper score reports include the overall score, achievement level, percentile rank, and more specific content area scores on the material assessed within each subject. So you can see the performance levels. It ranges from 1 to 5. 3 is considered passing or satisfactory. 5 is mastery. If students scoring a 1 or a 2, then it's likely that they need support in that subject. Results are expected to be released during the summer. So in terms of graduation requirements, students must pass 2 of their assessments. These are the grade 10 reading FAST and Algebra 1 EOC. So all students are required to meet these requirements by passing either of these tests or earning a concordant or comparative score for the test. And there's different concordant score opportunities for each test that students can satisfy their graduation requirement through. So if a student does not earn a 3 or better on their grade 10 reading FAST, they can still satisfy the requirement through the SAT or the ACT reading sections. For the Algebra 1 EOC, if a student doesn't earn that passing score of 3 or better, they can also satisfy the requirement through their geometry EOC that they might take in the future, through their PSAT and MSQT, which 10th and 11th graders will take every year, through their SAT or ACT math section as well. Florida offers a Scholar Diploma designation. So students who are graduating with a standard diploma can earn a Scholar Diploma if they meet all of the requirements that are mandatory for the standard diploma, as well as this list of requirements. Many of our students just automatically have satisfied these requirements through our, their 4-year journey here at the school. But some might, skip one of those introductory courses and go to an AP course. If a student wants to take an assessment that's outside their course requirements in order to satisfy the Scholar Diploma designation, then you want to inform me as soon as possible so that I can make sure they're on the roster for that test. What it might be the geometry EOC, for example. We can get them tested. Just let me know if that's something that your student is interested in. So moving on from the Florida statewide assessments to AP testing. The AP exam schedule is also in the newsletter, and here it is. AP tests start on May 1st, and they go through May 11th. College Board is specific about these tests being on these scheduled times and scheduled dates. They can only be administered as you see it in schedule here. One exception is that students, and this applies to a few of our students who are taking both AP Seminar and AP Statistics, they have the test at the exact same time, so that won't be possible. These students have already met with and scheduled an alternate date and time for the exam that they choose to take second. Other than that, students are taking the tests as scheduled here. So for their AP test, students should be bringing sharpened pencils with erasers. For their multiple choice answer sheets, they should bring pens because free response questions should be answered in pen for most of the exams. And then for this list of subjects, students are allowed to bring calculators. They're allowed to bring up to 2, just as an extra. So the calculator policy is on our next slide, and then also at this website, apstudents.org/courses that you can reference. And then also you can reach out to the student's teacher if you're still concerned about the calculator. A ruler or straight edge is brought only if students are taking AP physics exams. They cannot bring protractors. So again, here's just the details on the calculator policy, which is online. There are some changes starting with this year's exam. For example, macro and microeconomics previously did not allow a calculator, but now they do. So it's worth double checking the calculator requirements for your student that is taking any of these exams. So College Board also provides their scores on a scale ranking of 1 through 5, with 3 being considered as qualified. So the scores are a weighted combination of how students respond on both the multiple choice and the free response questions. And the final score is reported on this 5-point scale. Ultimately, this is just offering a recommendation about how qualified a student is to receive college credit and placement for this course. But note that each college just makes its own decisions about what scores it grants credit or placement for. Some colleges may require higher AP exam scores for credit, while different colleges might accept a 3, for example. And this year, for the first time, some of the AP exams are being offered digitally. So for us, the AP US History and the AP World History exams are going to be administered digitally rather than being paper-based. Digital exams are going to be the exact same as the paper-based, same number of sections, number and type of questions, question choice, and timing. Students will still be able to go back within a section or a part to complete previous questions, but just like the paper exam, when students are done with one part of an exam, they can't go back to that part. And accommodations are also provided in the testing application, which is called Blue Book. So if a student has extended time, then their countdown timer will reflect that. So this is what the digital AP exam will look like in the software in this picture. So a third category of tests that we have, in addition to the Florida statewide assessments and then the AP, are BACE and Project Lead the Way, or PLTW exams. So BACE is a biotechnician assistant credentialing exam. It does only apply to students who are enrolled in PLTW medical intervention, but it's a credentialing exam consisting of 2 exam portions. We have the knowledge exam and the practical exam. And it will be administered in 1 day on the morning of Tuesday, April 25th. Students are testing in person. Mrs. Bright is the contact person for the BACE exam in addition to me. She's sharing the information directly with her students. And to note, in order to get a passing score on the BACE and earn the credential, students must achieve an overall score of 80%, an average between the knowledge and the practical parts of the exam. And lastly, PLTW end of course assessments are required for all students who are in PLTW courses. And this is going to take place on May 12th. Students who take the assessments just receive detailed score reports that indicate their score, an achievement descriptor like novice, professional, etc., and the level of their knowledge within skill clusters assessed. Students can use these test results to qualify for internships, apprenticeships, earn college credit, or just improve their college application. There's approximately 50 items on each test. It is untimed, so students can't have as much time as they need for this test, but it is designed so that each section will take approximately 50 minutes, and with 2 sections, a student might expect to spend around 2 hours on this test. Test results are also available in their system, my.pltw.org, within 24 hours of test completion. So some final reminders as we are at the end of the information. Make sure you're consulting the assessment calendar when scheduling appointments or trips for your student. It's important that students arrive on time to school during testing, because once testing begins, students will not be able to join their testing room. And then, as always, encourage your student to relax and try their best. So if you have questions, hopefully you've been using the Q&A feature, and if there's anything left that I can answer, I'll be glad to. You're also welcome to send me an email if you have specific questions that apply to your student. Okay, it looks like we don't have any open questions in the chat right now, so I'm going to end this meeting. I do see one more. My student is taking a PLTW class, and I actually know your student. They already reached out to me. There will be a makeup test day for the PLTW students. I know that the World Robotics Competition coincides with this day. And for another question, do we have a pre-AP bio exam? Students are taking a pre-AP bio exam within the College Board system, I believe, Ms. Monroe's class, and then they're also taking the biology EOC. So yes, but it's kind of run through Ms. Monroe and not the school, since it only applies to those pre-AP bio students. So you can ask her for more information about that. Okay, so it seems like I've answered the questions, but again, if you do have anything else that applies to your student, you can send me an email, Miss Beagley. My email is just my first dot last name at orlandoscience.org. And also reference the newsletter for this information, the assessment calendar, and this presentation will be available on YouTube. So thank you for attending and have a great night.